is Theater Talk. I'm Susan Haskins. Here with me is my co-host, Michael Riedel of the New York Daily News.
Moon Over Broadway is a hilarious film about the making of Ken Ludwig's play, Moon Over Buffalo. The filmmakers were Chris Hegedus and D.A. Pennebaker. Now, theater fans will know, of course, their documentary, or film, I should say, about the making of the cast recording of Company. And regular people will know them for the great political movie, The War Room. And we are delighted tonight to be joined by Chris Hegedus and D.A. Pennebaker. Welcome.
Thank you.
Now, for those who have not seen Moon Over Broadway or Moon Over Buffalo, if you would just please tell us a little bit about Ken Ludwig's play and why you were attracted to it as filmmakers.
Well, Ken Ludwig's play is really kind of a front stage, backstage story, and we were very interested to do that type of thing. We loved Noises Off, of course, and we wanted to do something that had some comedy in it, and having Carol Burnett in a show like that seemed, you know, like an instant gratification for comedy. But you know, like everything in real life, it doesn't really turn out exactly like you thought. And
right.
you know, it shows much more than kind of the comedy of putting on Broadway.
You were always interested in doing a Broadway play, filming a Broadway play, right?
Just since I fell out of the womb, or however you get out of there, I was in love with the Act One, the thing about Moss
Hart's autobiography,
yeah,
right? Yeah.
Which is, it's not exactly an autobiography, but it's the most wonderfully detailed and marvelous kind of story, biography of the making of a Broadway show. And of course, you always imagine that's what you'll fall into. And the first time I tried it was with Jane Fonda in her first starring role on Broadway, which lasted one day. So that was kind of not quite a
short movie.
not quite Act One. It was sort of Act One half. But it was kind of fun to do, and it intrigued me because she was all involved with the Actors Studio at the time. So that backstage and all of that tight family thing that happens really intrigued us. And so we kind of were sniffing around for a long time. And in fact, at one point, Beckett wrote a play for us to make a movie about. And that came to Broadway and got an Obie, Rockabye, with Billy Whitelaw.
Right.
But that wasn't what we had in mind. Billy was a terrific person, and it was kind of, I mean, you felt you were on the set of Ghostland when you were in Beckett company. People that, I mean, they all had some separate life that they went away to at night, you know, that you never, there was some secret place they went to. But when this thing, we heard about this through our ex-producer from the War Room, Wendy Ettinger, and her sister, Heidi, was married to Rocco Landesman. And Heidi wanted to start producing as well as doing set design. So we said, well, when you get something good, Heidi, let us know. And she said, well, here's a couple of films that are things that we're planning on doing. And one of them was Moon Over, and we knew about Lend Me a Tenor. And we knew
that was Ken Ludwig's first play. That was a big hit.
I don't know if it was his first, but it was an earlier play, and it was really successful. Yeah. And then he had one playing on Broadway at the time. What was it? It was
Crazy for You, musical. Yeah.
So I thought, well, this guy's got stars going anyway. And then, and Tom Moore was sort of interesting because he'd done the very first Grease.
Tom Moore was the director of.
He was going to be the director. We went out to see him in Hollywood. And he had also done Night Mothers. I thought, well, this is kind of more interesting than it might be. And Carol Burnett, of course, that was the clincher for us, because the idea of Carol, who was kind of the wild rabbit, coming into the land of the hutch rabbits, you know, that's got to be drama.
Right.
When we thought the worst that can happen is we'll have a kind of mini Carol Burnett show, because she'll be wisecracking all the time, which of course she wasn't.
Well, I can tell you the producers and Ken Ludwig were initially concerned that they too would have a mini Carol Burnett show, as is so well demonstrated in your movie, because it shows you the meetings with Ken and the director, and they were constantly worried, you know, should we let Carol be Carol, or should we try to make her be more of an actress to do this part? You must have picked up on that when you were filming.
They were ready to put her in a bear suit.
Right, anything to get a laugh there. I'm interested, when you go to people and you tell them, look, we're going to be following you around with a camera. Now, Broadway is a paranoid world to begin with, as I know from covering it. They don't really want us to know what they're doing. How do you convince them to trust you and let you into their lives?
I mean, it was a very difficult process on this film, probably more difficult than any of our films, because everything about Broadway is so controlled by the unions. And, you know, in normal life, people don't have, you know, 3 or 4 unions behind their identity. And clearing that was a very big job, and Fraser Pennebaker and Wendy Ettinger really kind of went through that whole process for us. So just getting in was, you know, something we hadn't expected. As a matter of fact, we shot, I think, 2 weeks with a kind of contract that said we would burn all the film if SAG didn't agree to what we were doing. So they kind
SAG
of really,
is the Screen Actors Guild.
Screen Actors Guild. They really wanted to see what we were like filming. And then I think it was after only a week, you know, everybody kind of gave their okay and let us hang around them. But after the first day, I think they realized it wasn't going to be a painful experience, because it's really just Penny and I filming, as you know,
Right.
with our little tape
harmless.
recorder and camera.
That's the key to
They
your
almost
success.
forget like you're there. You forget you're there.
And,
No, they know we're there. I think people imagine that that's the problem. And
Right.
that's not the problem. It's if you were, let's say you had some physical problem, you know, you had a hair lip that stuck out to here, people would not look at it after a while. They'd get used to the wise things you were saying or whatever. And you would just, you know, it'd be something people learn to ignore. And camera is kind of I think of it as a black hair lip hanging on my shoulder or something.
I'm curious, though. I assume that you must have complete artistic control over the product. Do you have any agreements with any of the people in the movie that you show it to them first, and if they are uncomfortable about a scene in it, that you'll remove it, or can you put whatever in?
Well, it's vaguer than that, because you're not really, you don't want them to be involved in the editing. One of the things I like about film, unlike video, is that nobody sees it because it's going off to the lab downtown, and we won't see it ourselves for a week. Well, actually now the camera never sees it anymore because it goes into video and you put it into your computer.
Right,
And I've never seen the film that we shot. It's very frustrating. But what you'd say is, in the end, you do want them to think it's their film too. If they don't, they're going to get bored and you're going to lose them. So you have to give them the sense that if they're giving you their life, you know, and as the Indians say, you're taking it away from them, that you're under some kind of restrictive discipline too. So you get one time, you can't ask them to do stuff. You try not to interview them or ask them questions. You try to just be...
You don't want to set anything up. I mean, you
watch
just
it.
want to record it as
Well, we
it's
don't know
going.
how to set it up. What would we set up? Please come in and look nervous. What are you going to say? So you sort of go along with it, and they understand that you're really trying to see what's happening, what's really going down. You're serious about it. You're not trying to smoozle it up for your film. That they're not helping you make your film, that they're helping make a film that's a joint film. So in the end, of course, you show it to them.
So now, we should say that Moon Over Buffalo started to have problems fairly early on in the preview process, which you document. When did you all kind of look at each other and go, this is not going well, this production?
I don't think we ever went,
thought
this
it was
is
going
not
neat.
going
Not
well.
going neat, all
You
right.
were the biggest. I was up there in
thought it was
Boston,
great.
out of town with you guys doing
I
a
was
story of the
laughing
deal,
the
and you were
hardest.
laughing all the time.
I thought it
You're
was
the
great.
hardest laugher in the
I
audience. This
know.
guy.
I thought it was a very funny play, but I mean, we knew from the first reading, which is almost where we began the movie, because right after the reading, they realized that the part was really not written for a leading lady. They had only the male part as being the major role.
Played by Phil Bosco.
Played by Phil Bosco, and Carol's was more of a supportive, and they realized right away that you cannot have a star playing a supportive role in a play like this. So immediately they had to start rewriting, which is, you know, a huge challenge to do. They had a very tight deadline for the play, and, you know, they were uncertain to, you know, exactly what to do, and all the time they had the problem of wondering, you know, how to let Carol be Carol. And, you know, the audiences expect Carol Burnett to be a certain role in a comedy, and yet the play is written for a specific character, and you know, that immediately had caused tension.
The thing that terrified them initially, and it was like in Broadway, that would be the big leak in the side of the boat, you know, due to hitting something, was parody. The star who gets out on stage and does a parody of the play in any form immediately reduces the play to some sort of background.
Yeah.
And the audience may love it, you know. And in fact, sometimes when she'd forget a line or make a mistake, the audiences absolutely went crazy. They just loved to watch her handle it. So it was a funny thing, but it was not the story that Ken wanted to see on the screen or on stage.
Let's show a clip right now of Carol Burnett and Philip Bosco in rehearsal with Ken Ludwig, the playwright, and the director was
Tom Moore.
Tom Moore.
She was boffing Laurence Olivier, and I was boffing Chief Chunkachuk.
I'm going to work on this a lot tomorrow.
You know,
when
I
they're not
wouldn't
here.
mind
What?
if it is a little more graphic. I don't mean boffing Laurence Olivier, but something where it's quicker, the sound is quicker for the jokes.
Okay, we'll talk to him about that.
Cleaner
Okay.
than she was making love to Laurence Olivier, and I was making fire with, you know.
Good. This play is not going to be improvised. I'm just telling you. First of all,
Who's talking about
90% of this play works.
Do you not want our input? Do you not want our
That's why I said
experience,
That's why I
our
said
sense
to
of
speak
comedy?
up.
Do you not want
Phil,
that?
in as much
What you
as
just told me is in as much, so many
I'm
words
saying-
that
I'm saying
you don't
let's
want to be
address it.
improvised.
I don't
That
want
was
to be
hardly the right
improvised.
word to use.
I
I'm not
don't-
talking about improvisation. I'm talking about the actor's input in the creative process. If you consider that improvisation,
Yeah.
then I will do everything that is written and not contribute anything at all.
Phil, how can you say that when we've done what
Because
we've
you
done
dry
already?
up
But
the
how can you
person's
say that?
willingness to
But I
contribute
haven't-
when
but I
you
haven't-
question
but
the
we haven't-
motives of
but
everything.
We haven't done that.
Well, of course we haven't done it. That's my point.
No, but, well,
Then when he translates it to you over the telephone, you're not hearing me say it or seeing me say it.
Well, that's
And-
why, but that's
and you
why I'll
might
be
say
here more
that's-
and more often
Okay.
to hear it.
Yeah.
I can't tell if a certain material works till I see it up. I don't mean in front of an audience. That's why I'm here today. I'll come back Tuesday to watch certain scenes or to come whenever you want, but I can't give you an intelligent, good answer until I see it on its feet and watch it go, where the whole piece has some rhythm.
That was a tense moment where Philip Bosco was beating up on poor Ken Ludwig. Anytime where anyone ever says, turn off the camera, we don't want this recorded?
No, it kind of doesn't work that way. What they do is, Ken, who is a lawyer, you know, a Harvard lawyer who worked for 10 years, I think, with a very big Washington law firm and got up at 4 o'clock every morning to write plays, would pull out a piece of paper and say, I want you to sign this. And we would sign it, didn't matter what. He said, don't you want to read it? No, I don't need to read it.
What was it?
It's serious. Well, it'd be some sort of agreement saying, under the laws of Maryland or under the laws of Tanganyika or whatever it is, I hereby will be sent to prison immediately if I disobey anything written in this. Whatever, it was something he
pay no-
prepared. Well, you don't pay any attention because you can't make a film with pieces of paper.
No, of course not.
Either
yeah.
side, you can't wave a paper in somebody's face. But they never, once they had decided to accept us into that kind of little family, the paranoid family of the theater, it was like we had some strange attachments, but we were okay.
Right.
We were inside the belt. So we could kind of, whatever we did, and you've got to understand, Chris has got a tape recorder that looks like a kind of an oversized pocket.
Right.
And I've got a camera that looks like what your Aunt Harriet brings to the picnic. And
Not
they're
threatening.
usually on the floor because we're not filming. We film as little as we had. Nobody in their right mind would imagine this going into a theater. And it was the same thing with George and James. Later, George said, when the film was playing all over the world theatrically, if I had any idea, the War Room,
Oh.
if I'd had any idea,
George Stephanopoulos, James Carville.
James Carville, right.
Your
if I had
friends,
any
I see.
idea that this thing, what you were going to make was I would never have let you in.
Right.
But at the time, it looked so innocuous, and the two of us looked so dumb. Dumb is a good word, dumb.
They were worried for that discussion. I mean, they knew that there was going to be some conflict happening that afternoon. And as a matter of fact, I tried, if possible, to put radio mics on the different people because there's always so much noise. I mean, the air conditioners in that room
In
I
that
think,
rehearsal.
are from the 1800s or something.
Right,
and it really been worth my while to bought air conditioners and put them in the room, but we don't do those type of things. And they wouldn't wear their radio mics, Carol or Phil. And so I put them on the table.
Well, you got it. I mean, you could hear all the
I
great
could see that I
details.
should stay away. So I actually just put them there and kind of, they couldn't even see me.
She looked so innocent over in the corner. And I alone knew that she had this mixing board right at her side with everybody.
Well, I mean,
on
that's
it.
the key to your success, though. I mean, I watched you guys work. It was kind of interesting. I guess we should have full disclosure. I have a brief cameo, a little cameo there in your movie where I'm interviewing Elizabeth Williams.
Right.
And I was watching you guys work, and I was doing sort of the same thing for the newspaper, covering the out-of-town tryout of the show. And you do want to really make yourself a fly on the wall and have them forget you're there. And you guys seem very innocent and really like one of the family, but you've got to be Machiavellian, though. No, don't you ever look into that? They don't know we're here, but we're getting the really juicy stuff.
You don't want to bore your audiences with this.
So here, after previews have started, the play's not doing well. So here's Rocco Landisman and is it Elizabeth Williams, the producers, discussing ways of fixing Moon Over Buffalo.
But still, you can have funnier lines. Yeah. There can be, it can be sharper.
The joke issue is one that's always a problem with Ken, and Ken is always receptive to anyone that comes up with a new joke. So as I said to you all the other night, you know, there's one thing we always considered with Crazy for You, and that was to go outside and hire a joke writer, because Ken is a brilliant structuralist of farce, but one-liners don't come to him as easily.
The first line of the play isn't funny.
The dentist on Long Island idea would be probably a safe one.
That's the guy who writes the jokes, the dentist he's a dentist? That's great.
The ones I read were pretty funny.
Oh, Mousy Lawrence's stuff is hilarious.
Going to this guy and have a root canal? Hey, did you hear the one about my wife?
That's why he's got them. That's instead of laughing gas.
Does it hurt more if the jokes are bad?
Yeah, I remember that bit about the dentist. I mean, who knew there was a dentist who could rewrite people's plays and give them jokes?
But you see, I had no idea that was even a funny idea. I filmed it as a really serious discussion of some sort.
I think the producers thought it was a serious discussion.
What do you think is in it for the Moon Over Buffalo company to allow you into their lives? I'm wondering if at this point in your careers, you're famous filmmakers, that you come with cachet and people must be thrilled to think that Hegedus and Pennebaker are actually going to be capturing our lives on film. Do you think that's part of it?
Right. I mean, I really don't think they think of it in that way at all. I mean, each person, I think, has their own reason for kind of, you know, seeing their life in history, in a sense. And I know specifically when we went out to Los Angeles and asked Tom Moore if we could do this process, he said, well, you know, one thing I always regretted was when I did the show Frankenstein and it closed immediately. And I always felt that if it, you know, had a little bit more money or whatever, it could be the Starlight Express or this or that. And you know, now it's gone. There's nothing is left of it. And you know, I would really like to have something that, you know, shows this process that we go through. And he loves the theater, and you know, he did it for that reason.
I think they also, all of them, for various reasons, kind of really dig what they do. And they kind of don't mind showing off a little bit, or even just showing what they do to people who have no idea. Most people have no idea how theater works. I mean, I still don't, but
they don't either, obviously, from this lack of success for that play, I'm afraid. I do want to ask you one thing, though. There is a scene. Okay. There is a scene where the ingenue, I've forgotten her name now, but she comes out and she makes a stink about her pictures not being changed in the front of the theater in New York. I know that she was very upset to see that in the movie, and in fact cried when she saw that. Does that bother you at all?
It did. I mean, she didn't cry in my presence when I showed it to her.
She was a little taken back.
I think that, you know, she felt she was in a different space from that, but she wasn't the only one. Randy had just come out 2 seconds before and kind of, you know, said her dress looked.
Randy Graff, another actor.
Randy.
Yeah.
And you know, it was the first time they saw their front of house pictures, and you know, they had their comments on it, and I mean, I think it shows she has a lot of chutzpah, really, and you know, it's one of those slices of human life that, you know, you have to laugh at. We all do silly things like that. You know?
I mean, when time goes by, the thing that kind of won her over, I think, because she was, I mean, we weren't really prepared to do anything. We hadn't figured out what we would do. We hadn't thought it would come to a decision-making moment. But the thing I said is, remember, you're the one they're going to remember.
Yes.
She is the star of the
That got
movie.
right to the actress.
Her name is Kate Miller, and she will prevail. And we have to step out. I do also want to say that this movie makes Carol Burnett look like such a champion of professional behavior. She's just great.
A real trooper.
A real trooper. So,
The movie is Moon Over Broadway, about the making of Moon Over Buffalo, the play. Chris Hegedus, D.A. Pennebaker, the filmmakers, thanks a lot for being our guest tonight on Theater Talk.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This is a picture of Carol Burnett. She approved this photo, but when she did, I said to her,
Oh, look. We need to do something about this picture.
"Why?
Because everybody hates it.
Really?
3 people have come up to me and have gone, "You're a much prettier girl
Oh,
than
we'll
that."
show you what else we have."
I would love to. I
And we'll
think
work
I
it out.
have photo approval in my contract.
I don't know, but I'll check on it.
But look, the dress isn't the right color. There's a crease in it. And I'm talking. I'm going like this. Look, my mouth is like this.
All right, well, take a look at what else
It's
we have, and we'll
not
pick something else.
very attractive.
Okay.
I mean, it's not horrible, but it's not. I think I'm more attractive than that, and I'm supposed to be the beautiful girl of the show.
All right. Well, we'll look at everything we have, and you'll help me pick it.
Cool.
Okay.
Thanks
All right.
so much.
Have a good show.
Thank you.
Okay.
Bye.